A leopard never changes its spots. Nowhere is this truer than in Pakistan, a state perpetually on financial life support and yet miraculously always capable of funding terror against India. This paradox should no longer surprise us. What should alarm us instead is the source of that funding: Pakistan's military-industrial complex, the real jugular that India must now target with precision. This is Shubhangi Sharma. Let's dive in. The 22nd April terror attack in Pahalgam, Kashmir shook the nation to its core. The responsibility for this heinous attack was later claimed by the TRF, the Resistant Front, a proxy of Pakistan-based terror group Lashkar-e-Taiba. Now, just days before the attack, Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir, a former ISI man, had stated that Kashmir remains their jugular vein and that Hindus were different from Muslims. This was a clear attempt to revive the Kashmir bogey and the larger India-Pakistan conflict. The Pakistani military in cahoots with the ISI is known for harboring terrorist organizations as strategic tools to carry out its designs. This time, taking a leaf out of the Hamas playbook, terrorists aimed for innocent civilians, singling them out by religion. It is clear that this was designed deliberately to garner a strong reaction from India. For Asim Munir, this serves many purposes. It disturbs the political and economic progress of Jammu and Kashmir, it potentially disturbs religious harmony in India, and it puts Pakistan in a state of war with India, which helps him unite the nation and consolidate power within. And Munir desperately needs that because his leadership is being doubted. The Baloch rebels in Balochistan are giving the Pakistan army a bloody nose. The Tehreek-e-Taliban is crushing them in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Sindh is going through a political unrest of its own, apart from the larger public anger over Imran Khan's imprisonment. So Pakistan is actually at its breaking point, and Asim Munir needs this war with India. So India has rightly started with inflicting economic costs on Pakistan, especially with the historic suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. As more than 80% of Pakistan's agriculture and a third of its hydropower depend on the Indus Basin, this move will inflict huge costs on Pakistan in the long term. But it should just be the start. You see, despite staggering inflation, a collapsed rupee, and depleted forex reserves, Pakistan terror networks have never lacked cash, and it's likely that the Indus Water Treaty suspended is also not going to dent that. Why? Because they're not funded by the state alone. They're funded by an unaccountable army empire that sits atop Pakistan's economy like a parasite. The Pakistani military-industrial complex is the real target that must be explicitly pursued by India and internationally in the fight against terror. Since its formation, Pakistan has been ruled by its military either directly or indirectly. Never once has a prime minister in Islamabad completed a full term. No Pakistani prime minister has survived the wrath of the powerful army. And those who fell out of favor were either hanged, assassinated, jailed, or banished into exile. You see, Pakistan's military is not just an armed force, it is the country's most powerful business conglomerate, a deeply corrupt one at that. There is no major business in Pakistan which does not entail the involvement of the Pakistani army. From cement, fertilizer, food, insurance, and pharmaceuticals to banking and real estate, its tentacles extend into every corner of the Pakistani economy. It also has a dark footprint in narcotics trade. Its holdings via the Fauji Foundation, Army Welfare Trust, Shaheen Foundation, and other so-called welfare fronts generate over $26 billion annually. That's more than the revenue of India's biggest business houses and worth nearly 10% of Pakistan's GDP. And shockingly, this empire operates in legal twilight. The Pakistan Army Amendment Bill 2023 has not only legalized these holdings but criminalized criticism or disclosure of their dealings. The military's grip on the economy is legally unassailable within Pakistan. Any scrutiny, internal or external, is off limits. Decades of Western aid, especially from the US, has propped the Pakistani military to this level of dominance. The US has obligated over $67 billion to Pakistan since 1947. And between 2002 and 2011, the number stood at $18 billion, averaging at around $2 billion every year. While that aid was significantly cut by Trump's first administration, the support continues, with Trump clearing a $400 million package to support Pakistan's F-16s this year. The most striking detail, however, is the lack of clarity on these numbers, with staggeringly conflicting claims by Pakistan and the US. This shows that the scale of aid was much higher and, in the case of Pakistan, underreported and misallocated. So what does that mean? That means these billions were directly pocketed by the Pakistani military-industrial complex, and this is common knowledge. Pakistan is said to have diverted a large chunk of this amount to strengthen the military's stranglehold on the nation, while also propping up homegrown terror groups as a part of its strategy to defeat India with 1,000 cuts and to extend its interests in Afghanistan. This two-front conflict has enriched the army and kept Pakistan on its toes for decades. And it is the same with IMF loans. Pakistan is receiving its 24th bailout, about $7 billion. And where will this money go? It would be comical to think that it will be going to the Pakistani people. It is sufficiently clear that the Pakistani military has a corpus of funds dedicated to its terror activities, including those in Kashmir, stashed away from the lens of the IMF's conditions. The economic situation of Pakistan will not improve as long as this all-powerful conglomerate is not dismantled. The global lending agencies, including the IMF, must acknowledge this and demand access to scrutinize the finances of this mega-rich army of a mega-poor nation. Now, this is also why conventional methods to inflict costs on Pakistan's economy are not enough. India must launch a renewed onslaught to isolate Pakistan's military, especially its leadership, inflicting costs on the very people that thrive on war and terror. With the world condemning the recent attack, India must pursue global sanctions against the Pakistani military, its companies and individuals, their assets abroad, and everything in between. India must also establish that any talk about counter-terrorism is hollow without concrete action against Pakistan and specifically its military. Moreover, when it comes to India's military response, it should come at a time and place of its own choosing. It must consistently keep Pakistan's military on the edge round the clock, wear them down mentally and operationally, and strike when they're stretched thin and fatigued. The goal should be to expose and humiliate the Pakistani military establishment, especially its generals, on every possible front. This approach should complement India's offensive defense strategy in the long term.